Welcome one, welcome all to our final foray into, I don't have another F word. I was going to do an alliteration. But anyway, welcome. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being here. And what I thought we would do, just by way of review and closure, is to start out with the very beginning and just kind of flip through those and skim and scan in case anybody wanted to revisit any of the previous. Of course, this is Pedagogy of Kindness, our third and final session. We talked about who Catherine J. Denial is and why she wrote this book, because she felt like there was a dearth of kindness in the academy, as it were. We talked about what kindness was. We defined it. We looked at some synonyms and some antonyms for what kindness is. And then we talked about showing yourself some love. And I hope that everybody has had an opportunity to do some things that are kind for themselves. Am I hearing bells? I hear bells. Is that just me? Talked about chapter 1, which was the introduction and showing kindness toward the self. Maybe toward the end, we can have some people share some things that they have done to show kindness to themselves. Some ways that we practiced self-care and some benefits. And there are very, very good benefits to engaging in self-care. We had some questions. These are some ways that you can demonstrate self-care. We talked about kindness in the syllabus last week. And we talked about kindness with regard to assessment. And as I recall, there was some fairly robust conversation around that we can certainly revisit if need be, or we can just move on. Okay, session 3, which talks about kindness in the classroom. And this is, of course, chapter 4. And to sum it up, I have a main idea statement. The main idea of this chapter being classroom policies and culture set the tone for learning communities. Denial explores year-round practices, not just icebreakers, that foster belonging, participation, and that's on page 91, and safety. She examines trauma-aware teaching, the role of content warnings, and seeing students as collaborators in knowledge building. It's a place where participation is cultivated, not demanded. It's not authoritarian, and sees students' voices as being at the center. Hopefully we can come back around to that collaborative piece, or students' voices being at the center. I'm not sure how many of us do that or can do that or think about doing that, especially in light of having such a truncated schedule. I know I had some struggles with a lot of things, particularly group work, when we went from 15 to 7, but we can talk about that later. In the conclusion, it talked about the discipline of kindness. The main idea of the conclusion being kindness is a deliberate, ongoing discipline. Denial calls for faculty and staff to reimagine higher education, divesting from antagonistic, suspicious assumptions about students and each other. She brings that up a lot. She talks about antagonism towards students primarily and being very suspicious of them. She envisions an academy where everyone is accountable, supported, and genuinely believes in one another's potential. So I will leave off there and go to our questions and open it up to the panel. And I see that Tabitha has said you can go to TCAT for a 20, is that 1 hour, $20 massage or
Yes,
pedicure?
The pedicures and manicures are $10 a piece, so still $20. But part of self-care, why not allow yourself to receive that massage for that 1 hour for the $20? Or you can do the stone massage. They have various types, but you know, that's part of self-care.
Have you been there?
Every week. That's my lunch break.
All right, I have not.
You have to take advantage of it.
All right. Brian, do you have something? You have your, were you going to say something, Brian?
Oh, no, no, no,
Oh,
thank
okay.
you.
Anybody
I
else? Go ahead.
I have something that I wanted to say in reference to page 82, and I know you already have the questions, but I was reading the statement what you just shared, and I think that's my email dinging, so sorry.
Okay.
In reference to creating that welcoming environment. Hold on.
I will say, going back to page 81, till she gets back, the second paragraph begins, classrooms do not have to be battlefields. Does anybody feel particularly that classrooms are battlefields in any way?
The battle against ignorance, of course,
Okay, the battle against ignorance. Yeah.
but you're all supposed to be on the same side.
You mean you and the students?
Yeah, yes, yes.
Oh, of course. Yes, absolutely.
I would say it's not a battlefield necessarily, but occasionally there might be a student who challenges you as a professor. And so there has to be a certain approach to that to manage and to hopefully promote a more collaborative style.
Okay.
You have any thoughts on that, Maria? Any advice on that?
I have
I have
found
what
that-
I think is an up and coming student who is developing that sort of attitude.
I usually, it hasn't happened often in years, but when it does, I typically try to meet with that student privately and have a conversation and say, I've noticed that XYZ. I just kind of focus on whatever behavior I'm noticing, and I ask them what might be going on in their lives, or is there something that I can support them? I try to really give it a positive approach because oftentimes I have found that students who have those types of behaviors are reaching for something more. Maybe they need a little more support, or they're frustrated with other things, or it connects me to that idea that students bring so much to the classroom. Often it might be a personal issue they're dealing with outside of the class, or maybe there's difficulty with the topic itself. I teach speech communication, and sometimes students are very reluctant to engage because they're so afraid of that specific type of activity. And so I take it upon myself to have a dialogue with them to see how can I support you and what can we do together towards your success. And so I think having a conversation early on has helped me instead of just kind of ignore it. Um, and oftentimes I will find that the student has some concerns that we can work towards hopefully addressing.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any challenging situations recently, or students that they may have had to deal with either in the class or later on over your tenure? Nancy?
Yes, just today.
Wow.
Um, there was a group of 3 and they would not just stop. They wouldn't stop talking over me, over other people. And I tried to be funny at first. That didn't work. I need some of you all to help me with this, if you can. Thank you.
And this is week 3 of 7, correct? What do you teach, Nancy?
She's history.
I teach history.
I'm sorry.
I teach U.S. history.
Okay.
You
Before I
know,
jump in, anybody else? Go ahead.
Nancy, I had that same issue, and I wonder if it's the three guys who I had last semester. I had three that was of course, collegiate high. And then they was trying to pull in this fourth one. So I paused for a moment and had to remind them, hey, this is what's going on. You're here for an education, and I need you to refocus. We got X amount of time in this classroom. We have these 14 or 13 days, and you can't constantly talk through what's going on when you're messing up other people, ability to get this information and learn. And then I had the same thing happen last 7 weeks when I taught college success with some females. They just talking. So I paused for a second, and not to call them out, but I made a statement. I'm like, so let's hear what y'all are talking about, because you're, a little loud and disrupting the classroom. I said, so I paused for a minute, and y'all can have the floor. And they stopped. And ever since then, I didn't have any more issues. But the point is, you're in class and you're here for your education. You're only in here for X amount of time. Get this, then afterwards, y'all can chat. You can do whatever you want. But right now, it's my time. Or if a speaker is coming, I need you to respect that, because you're trying to get where we are and beyond that with the degrees.
Hey, Chris, I see it that you are having the same problems, and you called them out, and you broke up seating, and it didn't solve it. What?
Yeah, they just kind of came back to the same seating, and it was very high school. Felt like a high school behavior problem, and I'm not used to that. But also recognizing those students had pretty high, I can't diagnose anything, but very ADHD like symptoms, and so I just tried to even get more frenetic, more active in the classroom.
Right. Something I have done, I think, every semester, and I got this from my earlier days, is that I have class norms. And I usually write them on the board. And I used to write them on the board every class. And they basically are be prompt, be engaged the entire class period, and stow all personal electronics. Like you can't have, I've been called, believe it or not, a phone Nazi, because I typically don't allow phone unless we're using them for some activity. So they can't have earbuds or any of those kinds of things. And I give them a why. Here's why we don't do this. It's actually, it's either part of the syllabus or it's part of the policy. And it's about being distracted, and I go through I only get you twice a week for 75 minutes. We really kind of need to. And I also tell them, that I'm ex-military, which is why I'm so, like, I start right on time. Like, I don't, it's 9:30. We're going to start. If you need to come in, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But I do start. And that has gone a long way towards setting the tone. I don't, as it says on chapter 4, page 82, it talks about building a welcome. I don't know how welcoming that is or how kind that is, but I do think it lets them know kind of where we are. And I'm not necessarily proud of what I'm about to say, but for the first time in since 2018, I had to put a student out of the class last last semester, not last week, last semester. It was just going to escalate, and I just didn't want to. And I said, you know what, you're excused. You can go work in the library. And she did. And yeah. So I've had. Has anybody else had to do that? Has anybody else ever done that? Excused excused a student from the proceedings? Angie?
I have. It was last year sometime, and it was just the most stubborn not wanting to learn individual who I'm not really sure why they were even in, well, I know why they were in school. They were in school because their parents told them to go and it was free for them. And so after they just kept making snide remarks and interrupting, I finally just had to, we divided into groups to do group work, and I kind of pulled them outside and I was like, I'm going to need you to leave for today. And if you want to learn, you can come back. But if you don't, let's figure out an alternative for you to do a different class. They came back and they weren't happy about it, but they stopped being butts. Not that our students are ever butts, but you know, they were butts.
Right. Yes. Drake says it's sometimes tricky to do outside of this context, but I do a mid-semester survey where I ask students what they need for me to help them be successful and learn, and what they need from their peers to be successful and learn. Almost every time I have a rowdier group, it gets mentioned by their peers. We then look at the lightly edited responses, good and bad as a class. This then gives me an out. Hey y'all, it's getting a bit distracting in here, and if y'all remember, that's something your peers ask you to adjust this. Okay, so you do a mid semester survey, right? Not at the beginning, Drake.
I do both, but usually the classroom dynamic isn't solidified that early on. And in a 7 week, it can happen. It'll probably happen week 2 that you send out the mid-semester survey.
Right.
So you could catch them earlier. In 15-week classes, sometimes I have to address behaviors in a slightly different context, but regardless, I still do that survey. I actually did one this semester in a 15-week class, and 2 or 3 students mentioned that it's distracting in workshop when people are talking, or a couple of them asked for silence from their peers in workshop days. And so then I just put that up on the board and I say, this is you, not me. You're saying it. So help each other out. And it tends to work pretty well.
Right. Now, with regard to the phone with me, I do say, because I saw what Tabitha wrote, I do say that phones during class should be neither seen nor heard. And I issue a caveat that, hey, if you need to, I know some of you have children, there may be some parental issues. If you need to take a phone call, by all means do that, but just quietly excuse yourself and go outside. So I'm not an ogre, and I understand that things happen, but I just don't want just indiscriminate scrolling while you're here. So anyway, um, let's move to the questions. I'd like to hear, because a lot of these are just what people do in the classroom. What specific practices do you use to foster belonging and participation throughout the semester? The question says not just the beginning, but you can talk about what you do at the beginning as well. And I would imagine that Drake's survey would be one that he does. What do the rest of you do to foster belonging and participation? Tracy.
Hey guys. So I tried to do something that Angie and I were involved in this a million years ago that Liz Norell did, was to invite students in for a quick 15-minute at the beginning of the semester. Let's just talk. Not about the class necessarily, what's on your mind. Scheduling that is kind of tedious, but I have had students come back in my class climate survey and say, this was really the first time anyone has spoke to me outside of class and just wanted to know my thoughts.
When was the last time you did this? You do
This
this all the time?
semester,
Oh, you do. Do you teach 7-week classes or 15?
both.
Okay. And you do it in both.
It's hard, but it makes a difference to the students, and that's important.
I could see that being very valuable because they typically don't get an opportunity to share. And I will say that I did used to do that the very first week when I taught 15 weeks, but I became very, I don't even know what word to use. Like I guess the time freak. Like I don't have time for I don't have time. I only have, and I would break it down, twice a week, 75 minutes, but I could see that being valuable, and I'm going to try that.
It's amazing the
Scouts honor.
collaboration I
Yeah.
get. So everybody's coming in the room. I'm not as good as Angie is playing music. Sorry, Angie, I'm picking on you. But everybody comes in and they're talking and they talk amongst each other. It's not like, oh, I don't know who this person is in the row behind me. This is, I don't know your name. And again, names are really, really important to me. So it just makes the classroom so much more informal and we're relaxed and it makes learning so much easier. And I enjoy it. I enjoy that atmosphere so much.
I'm going to try that. I commit to trying that. Um, Not this semester because we're at midterms. I guess I could
You
have
can
a
do it
session.
next week.
That's right. Tabitha, you have a
I
something to say?
do. I do similar to what Tracy does, and I do when the computer sounds work. I do play music, but I do a check-in every class before I actually begin the information from the content, and I ask them how are they doing in reference to whether it's personal, whether they're struggling with something in their other classes, and I tell them, this is open floor. And then I do a pause and ask them, who do you know in this classroom besides the person sitting beside you? And then we do an introduction in reference to their majors in the beginning. And then I tell them to look around so that way they'll know who has a similar major. And then for the escape room, I always ask the question, who likes math? Who likes to read? So that way they can see, because when you mention math, or writing, that's everybody's number one cringe. I can't write well. And I'm like, yeah. I don't like math. And I'm like, yeah. So then you put them together and I'm like, hey, just look around. You just met a new friend. This person loves math. This person loves to write. So use them as a networking friend and learn who they are. And I show them how to communicate with each other through Teams and how they can call each other and so forth, because a lot of time you don't realize you have access to do that when a lot of people don't want to give out their personal information. So I tell them to use Teams to communicate, and I show them how to use eLearn to email each other.
Okay. Duna?
I involved the East Cape Islo game as a leader and manager. I believe the participatory learning works better than lecture-only teaching. We have such a wonderful Islo game in Chattanooga State for the first semester experience. So the game created a feel welcome, respected, and encouraged to participate. So there are respectable communication and participation and engaged in the Isolo game. I'm training game leaders, student workers who help the student communicate and solve the puzzles together. In the escape room, we practice balancing speaking and listening, so students have a space to share ideas.
Mm-hmm.
When someone felt nervous or frustrated, we encourage them kindly and remind the group that mistakes are part of learning. So I've learned good leadership is not control others. It is support everyone to contribute.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Anyone else? In the past, I have had comedians, and I would have them tell a joke before class just to get it out of their system, and that was always fun. That was always lively. So, um, Maria, is she still here? Maria.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Yes.
you do communication and speech, right?
Yes, I do.
That seems like a place where participation would be not as like they wouldn't want to do it. Am I correct in saying that?
It varies. Some
How do you get
students,
them to do that?
yes, absolutely. So we build on skills. It doesn't all happen on day one. We have to develop trust in each other. And so I begin with an introduction speech where students get to tell us whatever they want about themselves. It's an icebreaker, as you've mentioned earlier. And then throughout the course, we periodically have other smaller, I call them, impromptu speeches. They're essentially speeches where they come up and they pick topics out of hats and they talk about different things that pertain to their lives and their interests, their hobbies, their goals, their education. And then within that, time frame, they also have assigned speeches that they have to prepare. So they're constantly getting up, talking, and hopefully through that exercise, they become more comfortable speakers. And I think that also helps them understand who their classmates are. And many of them will tell me, I didn't realize that so many people had the same fears and concerns that I do. Or
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there were 3 people in this class who love gaming as much as I do. And so it really helps build community to continually engage all of them and allow them to speak up in class. And so it is built in the curriculum, but I also am very intentional in creating more time in class for them to continuously speak up and speak with each other and to learn about each other. And so that's helped in my context.
I like that as well. That's the. I wonder if they have. Sometimes they have decks of cards that help facilitate conversation. Just a little goofy. I may look into getting some cards, or I may come by your office and see what you have to
Yes.
share, because I really feel like I need to get away from being so concerned about the time factor. Again, I have so much to teach and so much to do when the human part is getting looked over. So if anybody else has any, that would be great to share those. Let's move to the next one. And we can always come back if somebody has something else they want to say about that. How do you handle topics or assignments that may trigger trauma for students? How could your approach be more kind but still intellectually challenging? And she spoke about this on page 94 under the heading of difficult conversations. Angie, I see that hand.
I'm actually going to turn my camera on for this one. So teach geography for those of you that don't know. And I like to teach world regional geography from the people perspective, because that's what people really care about. So, music, language, food, why people act the way they do, who they are. And last semester, I focused a lot on immigration, migration, why people move. And our big project was doing it through children's books, because children's books are often a lot deeper than anything we try to do as adults. And I had all but 2 were education majors, so it made it really easy. And one of the students was an immigrant whose family was in Ukraine, and didn't know that, and probably should have done more research before the project. So she had a really hard time with some of the parts that we did, but she rose above, and it's not because of anything I did, but she was phenomenal and shared and worked through the emotional part of what we were talking about. But I learned that I just need to be more aware when I introduce topics, even innocently, that got to be careful.
How would you have known that?
I do student info sheets the first week of school that ask a lot. I don't know how I would have known. Usually I do a pretty good job of getting vibes on students, and I did not. But she was awesome and she was gracious.
For some reason, that came up a lot last semester in my class as well. They got to choose what they wanted to write about. And we went to, I don't know how many of you have heard of either All Sides, the website that you should check that out. It's called allsides.com. And they got to pick the topic. And I'll bet you half the class picked immigration as their topic. and there was some very poignant writings about that. It basically this site takes um, a topic and it takes it from the left and from the right and from the center. You know, these different perspectives, and there was just a lot of conversation and a lot of concern. Um, but anyway, yeah, you're right. That was a right time, and there was a moment of kairos. It was very timely for those of you who know that term. Tabitha, are you still? Is that an old
Yes,
hand?
no, my hand is up.
Okay.
Um, a few years ago when I was teaching a class, I had a student, you know how we have a lot of events on campus and you encourage students to participate. So I made a statement. I was like, hey, everybody, I would like for everybody to participate if you like. And how about, you know how we're always trying to incorporate extra credit, you know, extra points or whatever to help the students. And this was during suicide prevention. Everybody was wearing teal and, you know, this and that. So one student made a comment to me and she was like, a stupid color isn't going to help a person to overcome what they're going through and not realizing. That's when I found out that my student was a cutter and stuff. So, you know, I took her to student support services, you know, and then, you know, talk to her one-on-one. And then we had an open class discussion with other students who had talked about that they had the mindset and so forth. So that class, that semester was very intense with a lot of students dealing with depression and having that mindset of no sense of belonging and had, you know, at one point in their life had suicidal thoughts and so forth. So for me dealing with that, that's like making sure that all my students were aware of the resources. And I think, well, it had to be more than a year ago because Miss Belinda was still here. But it's been a moment. But are we actually listening to the students and being observant when certain topics, certain conversations come up when we're talking about certain lessons and so forth, or how they get distance or how their demeanor changes? And a lot of time people aren't being visual and paying attention to that. So, you know, I talked to her and I, you know, told her I appreciate her sharing because she didn't have to share.
Right.
But, you know, it's just making sure that each student knows that the classroom is a safe place. And just because you experienced the trauma, there's help. You can, you know, I'm not saying that everything is going to be okay, but at the same time, it can get better if you're willing to discuss what's going on and actually open up to someone that's professional or someone that can get you the help that you need.
I think oftentimes as professors that we're afraid to address topics that students are will readily discuss. I had a student one semester that had some extremely personal information. She told me what she wanted to write about in her discussion post. And I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you put that in the Dropbox? Because I think that this would be really triggering. And I don't know if you want this kind of information out to the general population. So I find that they are much more willing to. And if you haven't read the section on difficult conversations, I'm not going to go into too much depth. But one comment that Denial made was, it's common for us to fear the storm of emotions that unlooked for comments can unleash. So I think we have to be ready. It's not all academic. You know, that goes back to the humanity part. We have to be ready. I mean, I take classes at UTC, and there's topics that the professors at UTC won't touch. Like somebody brought up something in class. I won't say what the topic was, and the instructor just almost went apoplectic. Like, you know what? I can't You can. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna talk about that or address that. So, and I don't know if it's a. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's a job thing, and I guess we have to be careful about what we say in our classrooms, right? What do y'all think about that? Have there been things y'all have had to shy away from, um, and things you're shying away from right now? I see those faces out there. Tracy, she is
I think
getting.
it's I think it's difficult for us because a lot of the students want to talk about DEI and
Yes.
how it will impact them moving forward in their careers, because I'm a very 2-year go to work program. And I have them bring up, what if I'm Seventh day Adventist? How do I have that conversation of it's important for me to have Saturdays off? But I've also had that recently, someone of the Jewish persuasion. How do I tell them I need the Sabbath off?
Mhm.
And I hope I will not get in trouble for if this is a question the students bring up. And I always try to look around and go, who would rather not be part of this conversation? And I can make time to do this at another time. And most of the time, they're all going, no, we want to have this conversation. Does it take up precious class time? Yes. But as we learned through the pandemic, there are all sorts of modalities that we can have our material covered. And sometimes I'd rather have that relationship building and respect and trust by having those conversations and say, okay, this 15 minutes, I need you guys afterwards to go through this and do it on your own if we're going to
Right.
discuss this in class. But I try to get the temperature of the classroom. And if something comes back on me, then that's my fault. I'm trying to adjust my classroom to what the students want.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. I'm gonna click that and look at it because apparently we do have a policy. And since you brought that up, Tracy, I will say that happened at UTC because there were some clubs and some things that were disbanded. And I don't know if you saw it on the news, but there was a walkout. Um, yeah, there was just a whole lot of hoopla. And teachers were, I guess, some teachers or professors were trying to be supportive, but they couldn't, because a lot of the professors got asked if they could go march with them, and they were like, "No, we can't do that in our capacity because, I like having food." So yeah, we do. We have to be careful. And again, thank you. Do I have to? How do I open that? Anyway, I'll have access to that. I'm definitely going to look at that, Chris. Thanks for sharing. Can you summarize it briefly, or is it a long thing?
It's not that long, and it applies to something that came out from the state, but it basically defines that nothing in their state or even federal laws should ever impact our freedom of speech, First Amendment rights, or academic freedom of faculty and other instructors as protected by the First Amendment to bring up topics that we need to bring up in class.
Okay,
So we don't have to shy away, but I really like Tracy's advice to get the temperature of the classroom and, not go there just to go there.
sure. Yeah, we don't want to be lobbing grenades in class. Okay, that was interesting. Tracy, you have something else to add? Okay, let's move to the next one. And what does it mean to treat students as collaborators in learning in your discipline or classroom? That's pretty straightforward. What's it mean for them to be collaborators? And I think Drake has already alluded to that by having a survey, and I've had surveys as well. Mine usually are academic though. What do you like about writing? What do you like about reading? But certainly a class climate one would be awesome to have. What other collaborative things do you have, or could you suggest, or how do we bring them in to the conversation? Tracy?
I've done this many times. They'll ask a question. I don't know. Look it up on your cell phone. Or, best yet, look it up and let's talk about it the first 5 minutes of the next class. I do that often.
Okay. That's nice. Just sounds like you just think about them a lot and you just bring them in a lot. That's great. Anyone else? Collaborative work with your students? They are a part of the classroom. They're not addendums, right? And I also like what Maria said, what she does with her in her class with speeches and having them all say something or do little speeches or have little, 3x5 cards where they pull them out. You said they pull them out of a hat or out of a something, Maria? Is
Yes,
that
I
correct?
have a little box and they pull it out of this little box.
And are those things you come up with?
No, actually, the spirit of collaboration, there are topics that over the years students have shared with me and said, these are the kinds of things we'd like our peers to talk about and learn more about our peers. And so I continuously collect that feedback from them and those become the topics.
Okay. I would love to see those.
Yes.
Nick?
Yeah, hey everyone. I just wanted to jump in on the collaboration. I had one work really well. I was asked to go teach a section of I think 1020 at Howard. And I had been told like that they were not participatory. And it was just like, pulling teeth to get them to talk. And so I went in the class, I mean, with like basically zero expectation. I was just, the only thought I had was I'm going to get to know them. And this was a 15 weeks, so I had the time, was to get to know them well and then go from there as far as basically letting them build the course. And so the entire class was like, I mean, they were either African American or they were Guatemalan. And so we just went through the syllabus and I was like, look, this is what TBR says we have to do. And we can do this a million ways. And my job, I think, is to like help guide you find the way that you guys want to do it and you guys can think about it. And so, at first they were like, what is going on? But then they got, more involved as far as like, yeah, we started talking about deadlines and policies for the class. And then I gave them the anthology and they came up with their own reading list. I'd highlighted for them, I said, pay close attention to here's all the African-American writers, here's all, the Latino writers, but we can focus on, whatever you want. And they came up with the reading list. They pretty much came up with the essay prompts and assignments and other creative ways to satisfy that assignment with like some kind of critical reflection, just like varied ways to do the assignments. I didn't have any problem with them at all. I mean, I went back the next year. They were, I think it was just getting that buy-in and allowing them to make a connection to the material. So that's been my full tilt experience, I think, on just like kind of letting go of the course in general and being like, hey, you guys can create it. Yeah, that's it.
That's nice. That's good. That reminds me of something I think I did one time, and I may have to do it. I let all the students, like 20 students in a class, each come up with a test question. Is that kind of the same thing, Nick, or no?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the
Okay.
ways I can, doing it like that too is another way. Like, so in my 1020s, when we used to teach like straight up lit, I had lit courses where they'd give it, and I'd get so mad because I'd always miss like one or two, even though I did all the reading. I just didn't remember, on page 55, what song was playing on the radio or something obscure like that. And so I let them, what we do is, I do the roll and then immediately from the roll, I just pull up on the screen a Word document and they come up with test questions, quiz questions for the reading. And yeah, and they vote as a class, whether they want to keep them or not, and come up with bonus questions. And then it's a good way to kind of see where they're interested in the stories too, as a way to kind of guide the discussion. So
Yeah.
it kind of helps as a preemptive strike on the discussion. Cause sometimes I got to be like, all right, well, let's finish the quiz. We can talk about that. I'll put it on the board. We'll talk about it, but let's finish the quiz first.
And they sort of have already taken it because they've gone over it.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, they should know the answers, I'm like, the quiz should be a reward for doing the reading, not a punishment for not reading every single detail.
Sure. And I like Cahoots too, whoever said that. I used to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Cahoots is great. Duna, you have two hands.
Yes, I'm sorry that my video is not working. So can you hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I believe to treat the student as a collaborator in
Mhm.
learning means I think we learn with together. It's a one with one another. In my escape room game experience, collaboration means that everyone voice and ideas and problem solving skills mattered. Encourage actually we encourage the shy student and support the group to solve the clues together. So we met the shy student or the minor student. All they are really one just sometimes very frustrated. Just teamwork. They just frustrated the work together. As a team. That's
Yeah.
just deep, yeah. But we just encourage the group to solve the clues together.
Yeah.
So I think as students collaborate, we build the trust,
Hmm.
and I think create activity and confidence together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, these are some really good ideas. I wish they were all in the chat. I feel like I'm going to forget a lot of this. There's been some really, 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 really good stuff. Um, Nick, is your hand still up, or did you just not take it down, or is it up again? Bueller, Bueller. No. Okay. We've got. Oh, create a transcript. All right. See, I didn't know I could do that. All right, we've got about 10 more minutes. Let's do these last couple of questions. How might adopting a pedagogy of kindness benefit faculty and staff well-being as well as student outcomes?
I got a response for that.
I'm sure I like that tone. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Well, because most people feel overwhelmed and burnt out. So
Mhm.
by creating that atmosphere of kindness and the benefits from it, it actually reduces the burnout from faculty or, that adjunct instructor, because now you have that sense of completion where your students are more engaged. You got increased engagement. You got students that actually see you as an individual being transparent because you've extended that kindness. So now the students are motivated to come to class. They're ready to ask questions because you've already set that atmosphere, so they know that when they ask the question, you're not looking at them like, here go another question. You're inviting that, so that faculty member finally has that restored joy of what they signed up for, because instead of just receiving that paycheck, now you remember your why, and you
Okay,
get that rejuvenation of motivation and with that job satisfaction.
okay. Nick, did you still have your hand up, Nick? All right, Tracy.
I tell my students from day one and repeat it often, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. And I said, Miss Clifford is not perfect. Miss Clifford is not perfect. I even have it as a question in a RISE module. Who's not perfect all the time? Me. And I don't give them a choice of answering as themselves. So being human, I think, is so important in the world to go into kindness. And kindness doesn't mean letting everybody get away with doing no work at all. It's all about what kind of community can we build where students feel respected, trusted, and hopefully take some of those soft skills to their next class to wherever they go to work.
Cool. And the final question, um, what small step can we take next semester, and then I put in parentheses, today, to embed more kindness into our teaching or professional roles? And obviously, this shouldn't end here. It should continue on. Angie?
That was actually my favorite thing that she kept saying in the book. And if you haven't listened to the audiobook of this one, it was so much more enlightening than the reading because you could hear the inflection. And anyway, my favorite thing she said was like, you don't have to do it all at once. Do it one, tiny little piece at a time to incorporate that kindness. And I think that's my problem is I read something like this or listen to something like this and I want to do it all because I just want to fix everything and then I get overwhelmed and then I freak out and then I just stay stuck. So I don't know what my little nugget is that I'm going to change, but I'm going to change one thing to bring more kindness because kindness is not nice. Kindness is kindness.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Any final thoughts, comments, questions, Jeremiads, as we wrap up this wonderful study? I've really enjoyed reading this book. Tracy.
The way this book goes and starts out with this, with Miss Denial, Professor Denial, of classrooms being just a place where the students hate the teachers and the teachers are looking for, some sort of war or something. And I don't know if that's just Chat State. I don't know if it's just my classes. I know a lot of you outside of this little realm. And I don't that's not the atmosphere that I think that we have here at Chat State. And if there are classes that are like that, sometimes I hear a little bit. But for the most part, I think we do practice some level of kindness.
There certainly are pockets. I echo that sentiment completely. I've had a very good experience here. So, anyone else? Well, if no one else has anything, thank you all for attending. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your kindness. And this is not the end, but it is the beginning of a new pedagogy and a new paradigm. Go forth in kindness. When kindness becomes a part of your classroom culture, it becomes a natural part of the day, not something extra that you have to fit in. Thank you. You are very welcome, and I appreciate all of you. I'll be seeing some of you because I do want to get some of your ideas and incorporate them into my classroom. All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks,
Have a great
Visher.
rest of the day. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.